And this meeting is going to be recorded today. And so I've just hit the record button. I sent a reminder to myself because it's easily forgotten. So we have a really packed agenda within this first session, within this hour. So I'm going to run through a quick welcome, and then we're going to have a number of presentations from Biomarine Ingredients and Nutramara, who are two great companies operating in the marine bioeconomy in Ireland. We're going to hear about their journey, what they're up to, and what are their next phases going on. And then we're going to hear about program supports as well, available from European and Irish projects. And then I'm going to talk about next steps. So before we begin, I think it'd be great to just give you an overview of what the Circular Bioeconomy Cluster Southwest is. We're a new initiative, a new cluster initiative that is supported by Enterprise Ireland for the next 3 years. And we're promoting and developing the circular bioeconomy with an emphasis on the marine and waste to value themes. And why are we focused on circular bioeconomy? Well, it's really important for long-term sustainable development. It is the production and use of renewable resources, also waste biostreams and residues, and turning those into products like bioproducts, value-added products like food and feed, and bioenergy as well. It's a very significant market, so it's estimated to be a 1 million jobs by 2030, and over a $7 trillion global market as well by 2030. So, and it's very important in terms of long-term sustainable development, hitting our green economy goals as well. In terms of the cluster and what we're doing, we've been looking around at Europe and what are the benefits of clusters and how we can bring that to here. So in terms of benefits, it's about bringing stakeholders together, like we're trying to do through this event, to host and share education and knowledge sharing, but also it's a way to support companies as well, and through specific programs and services. And this can help to increase the competitiveness of firms locally and internationally, and help to foster talent and skills. So clusters are known to help support companies that on their growth trajectory in a much faster way than they otherwise would not have been. And so this is important because this is actually, it's reflected in European strategy, and it's also reflected in European success stories when we look at clusters as well. One case study I want to highlight that's particularly pertinent to the marine economy is the Iceland Ocean Cluster. It's an industry and SME-led cluster where companies are operating across the seafood value chain from fisheries to seafood biotech. They offer a number of services like networking and incubation and research and consulting to the companies. And they also have very specific projects, for example, 100% Fish, which is all about fish and seafood utilization. They have over 70 companies in their cluster. And since they started, they've seen an increase in the number of startups that are being created and who are commercializing and creating new value-added products. That's really exciting when you think about the potential for economic development as well, and local jobs, and supporting companies with a mission. So what are we doing in marine bioeconomy at the cluster? Well, we know we have the tools to help companies, like with research and development and biorefining processing and things like that, and market research, and all those things that are listed there. And we have a network that helps us do that at MTU, but also across Ireland as well. And you can see the logos here on the right-hand side. And so that's great. We also need a strategy to help build and support the businesses who have new products, who are thinking about creating new products and services, but who maybe an existing business who see there's a waste side stream and need support to help them to develop a new business and value proposition around that. So I guess what I'd like to share with you before we go into the panel session today is that there's opportunities to help shape the cluster strategy over the coming weeks. And we'll be hosting workshops in June. So I hope you would be interested in participating in that. And we're going to develop a strategy and a program for the next two and a bit years to support the companies, but it needs to be led by companies, and that's why it's important to participate. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our speakers. And the purpose of the event today is to highlight and inspire, be inspired by the great companies working in marine bioeconomy in Ireland, but also to learn and share knowledge about their growth trajectory, how they did it, and what supports they were able to utilize to get them where they are today, and also to find out where there's partnership opportunities and where there's program opportunities as well that companies can take advantage of who are on the call as well. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and I'm going to pass it over to Jason Hooley, who's the CEO of Biomarine Ingredients Ireland.
Thanks, Katrina, and good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for taking the time to join and to listen. Hopefully we'll provide you with something that you find useful. So I'm just going to test the technology here now. Hopefully you can see my full screen. Yeah, all good. Okay, so I've got a lot of slides, but I'll run through them pretty quickly. The first, just going to talk about a company, a small bit about our raw material and our facilities, the market, and R&D, which is critical to where we're going as a company. Company itself, we operate in the B2B space, so we're an ingredient supplier. It's, I suppose, a tricky proposition. We're B2B, not B2C. What we try and do is work very hard to get part of a customer's supply chain. It takes a long time to get part of that ingredient deck and part of their formulations. But what we find is once you're in, it's a long-term relationship. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to take the raw materials off the Irish coast and transform them into high-value marine ingredients, proteins and peptides. This is our value chain proposition. At the bottom of the chain, we've got the base ingredients. We move into value-added ingredients, nutritional solutions, functional systems, all the way up to bioactive peptides, where we be essentially fractionating our protein into peptides, into amino acids, to try and tailor our offerings for various customers. The higher up the value chain you go, the more, the higher the prices, the longer the time, but also the spend gets far more sophisticated. In terms of raw material, I suppose that's one of the primary reasons why we exist, is because we're owned by Killybegs fishermen, and their access to raw material is important. And this is probably an old statistic at this stage, but 250,000 tons of raw material not landed in Ireland, but yet caught off the Irish coast every year. One of our vessels, a couple of our vessels, this is the kind of journey they have from a market perspective, which is phenomenal. Up to 3 days steaming to the Faroe Islands just to offload a catch, and that was kind of the, I suppose, the genesis of the company and why we started. So we started with blue whiting, processing blue whiting into marine minerals and various proteins, insoluble, soluble proteins. But we also look at bycatches, FAO estimating 7.3 million tons annually, and of course byproducts from processors. Up to now, we haven't been in a position to utilize those, but we are now in a position to do so. So if you have people who are interested, or if you are interested in valorizing your side streams, then we certainly have the resources now to look at that and to maximize the value potential from those, from any marine source, not just fish, but also shellfish and algae. Facilities, the most advanced marine biorefinery in Europe, because we're situated in Monaghan. We've invested 15 million in the plant. We've raised 13 million euro to date, including 5 million, and we're in the middle of a very significant funding round at the minute. So it's very similar to dairy technology. It's very sophisticated plant, highly computerized. It's unique in Europe in that it's a plant that's human nutrition grade from marine ingredients. So we're very excited by what we've developed, but it's taken us a hell of a long time. And I suppose this is the journey that we're going on. We're based in Monaghan, just about 10 minutes from the border, but we want to scale into our facility in Killybegs, which was the original plan. We own 9 acres of land with full planning permission, and site clearance work is commencing in that site as we speak. So we'll hopefully have some major movement on that in the coming 6 months. Just as an image graphic of what that plant will look like. It will be significantly bigger, 7 to 8 times bigger than what we've got at the minute. Just full planning permission, and the site is located just in the pier, in Killybegs, off the pier. So we've done a lot of work on our traceability. Various certification bodies just show that we're up and running and we're, I suppose, a valid business. We produce then a whole range of products, different grades, compositions for different market segments, different customer opportunities, from our marine minerals range, which goes into the nutraceutical market in Asia Pacific, to the insoluble protein, soluble protein, and a small bit of marine minerals. But we're always developing new products, always looking for the next move in terms of customers. The closer you get to the customers, the more you understand their requirements, and the more they want to partner with you to produce a specific peptide for them, or produce a specific blend for them, because we now blend powders in our factory as well. In terms of the market, you know, you're all very familiar with the global trends. What's happening out there in terms of health? I mean, the COVID situation has exacerbated things around certain trends that were there, but health and wellness is hugely important. People are much more conscious now. What are they eating? How can I improve my health by what I'm consuming on a daily basis? And that's a type of trend that we like to feed into. Asian Pacific growth, Asian Pacific socioeconomic development. That's the type of thing that drives our business in terms of the long-term opportunity. Traditional protein just can't meet the demand that's out there. Just in terms of global growth and the population growth, 219,000 people will be at dinner table tonight globally that weren't there last night. So if you just think about that in terms of the pressure that puts on the Earth's resources, the pressure is there for protein, and traditional protein can't meet it. Of course, there's a huge push now towards non-traditional protein, in particular plant protein. And we think, because of various aspects and issues to do with sustainability on land and incomplete amino acid profiles, digestibility issues with non-traditional sources, we think we sit in a very nice sweet between traditional and non-traditional alternative proteins. Just some of our customers, some of our applications. A toothpaste in Germany, basically we're providing calcium into a toothpaste in Germany. Sports nutrition, functional ingredients in Korea. Immunity boosting products in Denmark. We go into pet food in the US, all over Europe, all over the world at this stage. Aquaculture feed, biofertilizer in the US, that's being used, believe it or not, for growing cannabis in California, and all kinds of weird and wonderful market opportunities. Huge amount of that is driven by R&D. R&D with your customer, joint R&D projects, but also splitting R, research, and D, development. We've got a huge amount of product development work going on, trying to turn these ingredients into more higher value opportunities, but also massive amounts of research. And the research focuses on these kind of 6 areas, from diabetes to satiety, which are very much related, sarcopenia, and muscular health, very much related. And these are the types of work that we're doing to try and move us up into those bioactive peptides, functional ingredients, nutraceutical market opportunity. Just an example, we're kind of unique, I think, from an Irish perspective. I'm going to finish very shortly, Katrina. Very unique from an Irish perspective in that we actually really depend on accessing those markets through the publication of research papers. So just some of the things that we've published there recently with our partners in University of Limerick and DCU. This is the type of comparison that we show to our customers, showing the branched chain amino acids and the bioavailability of branched chain amino acids versus our competitors in the whey protein isolate business. Chronic study that we've ongoing in terms of glycemic management with our partners, University of Ulster and UL. Similarly, University of Limerick, Ulster University, publication there. UCC, Chagas on bioavailability of our calcium. The reason we have to do this work is because if you're going into an ingredient dick, okay, if you're going onto the back of a packet of something, be it, let's say, a noodle, and you're bringing in a new ingredient, either it's a new product that customer is launching, or you have to displace somebody else on the back of that packet. And the new product launches, long-term journey, require huge investment. From a displacement point of view, you need to be able to demonstrate how your ingredient functions versus some of the other ingredients that are already in there. So if you're going to displace somebody, you need to tell them why you're better. If you're going to take the place for some guy in a team, there has to be a rationale. What are you going to contribute more than the other person? And that's really it. Whistle Stop Tour. It's taken us 5-6 years of production. It's taken us 30+ million in investment just to get to the stage where we are at the moment now, where we're really pushing on. We're doubling turnover every year. We have 6 record quarters of growth in a row. We're in a major funding expansion, and you know, if you've got questions, I'm happy to take those later. If you've got anything else, my email address is there that you can subsequently follow up. So thanks very much. Hopefully that wasn't too rapid fire.
Thanks so much, Jason. That's really great presentation. I'm sure the audience will have lots of questions in the Q&A. And now we're going to ask Stephen Fitzpatrick from Nutramara to share screen.
Okay, you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks again. Thanks for the opportunity to share our story. Nutramara is a company established about 4 years ago, and I suppose my own background is in natural extracts and real health benefits from natural extracts. So a group of us got together with a shared vision to develop bio-ingredients, you know, from seaweeds in a sustainable manner, and hopefully to build a community of like-minded people around what we do. So, so basically, to sum it up, what do we do? We harvest specific seaweeds. We've developed extract technologies with a number of university partners. We're involved with UCC, Teagasc. We're part of the Bioeconomy project, and also we've great collaborations with MTU, particularly the Shannon ABC. So through our own scientists and through the scientists in the universities, we've developed unique processes for identifying bioactive ingredients and extracting them from various different species of seaweeds. And we've tried to validate them along what Jason was saying in terms of validating what these ingredients can do. We also take it to the next step where we take these ingredients now and we formulate them into products which are suitable for dietary supplements or in various different categories. And then we hope to launch them then as brands, to spin them out into different brands. So just to give you kind of an idea, so we kind of describe ourselves as a brand lab. So we look at the ingredients, we look at the type of formulations which are most suitable for those ingredients, and then we develop a brand. And so we're at a very exciting stage at the moment where we've been working on this for a number of years, and these brands now are really close to market. So we'll be looking to put these brands directly out to the consumer. So we have a brand called Seabody, and this is a range of health supplements and beauty products which are based on the natural extract ingredients. We have found particular interest in health, hair health, and we have an ingredient now. We're spinning that out, and we're bringing that to a brand as well, which is going to be specific for hair health. And we also then take the ingredients, and we're going to bring them out as ingredients which are suitable for pet health. So we're busy across a number of different categories, but the core is the science and the chemistry in the ingredient itself. So what we've done is we've looked at a number of different activity areas with the ingredients, and we push this forward now into studies in terms of skin and hair health, to do consumer studies, which are ongoing at the moment. Some of this work is actually quite difficult to do in the current COVID scenario, but we are pushing ahead with it. And we're also looking at collaborations in relation to microbiome work. So our sustainability is, and our if you like, our main core in what we're doing is we're trying to be harvest sustainable, the ingredients, to use the zero waste processing. So we're looking at a biorefinery, hopefully, which will cascade through various different processes, and through using good design and smart technology, we can become a zero waste process where side stream has a purpose and can be used. And this is really a goal and something that we're striving really hard to do, and we have various successes at it. And the sustainability story goes right through then into our types of formulations that we're manufacturing, how we're manufacturing, the types of packaging that we're using for the consumer product, so that this is a genuine story throughout throughout the whole process. And looking then to support, develop the community here, which we're looking at today in terms of how to support the community here. So that's all I have to say, really. So if you have any questions, please put them into the chat, or you can see my company email details there. So thanks very much.
Thanks, Stephen. You can unshare your screen now, thanks. It's really interesting to hear from both Stephen and from Jason, because they, working with different feedstocks, developing different products, but sustainability is also a core theme, and it's part and parcel of it. And that's really interesting, it's particularly because it might have a more regional perspective as well, where based in Killybegs and based in Kerry, and learning from these companies it's a great opportunity. So I have a question to kickstart the conversation, if that's okay. So I guess, what do you see, having built companies and working on R&D, and it's taking time. Obviously, we heard you there, Jason. But like, what do you think is needed in the innovation ecosystem to support companies to get to market faster? Are there gaps, or how do we consolidate some of the activities?
Yeah, there's a lot in that question. I think, I said previous occasions just before I came on, you think you're going to sell twice as much, do it in half the time, and cost half the amount of money, and that's rarely the case. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that I think there's, from our perspective, certainly we've leaned heavily on the dairy experience, and say from a route to market, from a scientific and a technological point of view, we would have looked at some of the dairy guys. I think it's probably about getting the right advice, and it's very difficult to get advice on something that hasn't been done before, and sometimes you just need to plow the field yourself. I think there are unnatural volumes of consultants around the place who proclaim to be experts in everything, and really at the end of the day don't know a whole pile more than we know ourselves, and we've certainly, I suppose, fallen into that trap on occasion. So I think maybe what can be done to fast track or something that kind of innovation journey, choose your advisors wisely, because there is an industry, it's an advice, and there's very few consultants who will say that they can't take a task on, and ultimately it's the company that will suffer because they'll be delayed, they'll be put in the wrong direction. So choose your advisors wisely.
That's really wise advice. And Stephen, what would you say from your perspective?
Before, exactly that. It's really about resilience and believing in your own product and your own message, and as you can take on, as Jason's saying, detractors and consultants that can bring you on a merry chase. But really, you need to stick to your core values and try and find the researchers then that match what you're trying to get done. I suppose it's what we need to know more about who's doing what in terms of research in the country in this particular area. What universities or what third level institutions are working on what parts of the puzzle to help us figure it out. And I suppose one thing that's really fantastic, the help that the third level colleges can do is to tap you into networks of researchers, but also in terms of funds. They have a really good understanding of funding and funding calls that are coming up, and how your needs may suit other needs that you're just not aware of.
Great. Thanks, Stephen. And I guess, Jason, when you started the company, how did you go about the partnership with the Killybegs folks? Like, how did that all come around? Like, because it's a very important partnership for your company. So what was the start of your journey like?
suppose it was exciting as much as anything else. Any journey, any entrepreneurial kind of venture is exciting, and to be honest, to this day, it's still very exciting. You know, so there's a lot of activity happening. But in terms of how it happened, because the Killybegs fishermen understood that they had a raw material that maybe could be maximized, or the value could be higher than they're currently getting, and maybe a diversification away from the primary catching sector into more value-added processing. So it was kind of probably an assessment of the resources at their disposal and a desire to diversify and maybe to add more value. I think that's probably what started it. And then we brought in some Norwegian consultants to advise in terms of the technological perspective, and that was the start of the journey.
And would you say, just building on that a little bit, are the Norwegians experts? And would you say they have a lot of expertise in this space?
I think as a country, Norway greatly values the marine resource. I would be confident that what we're doing as a company now exceeds what's happening in Norway. And that sounds very maybe cocky or arrogant. I think it's just a fact. I think what we're doing, and the fact that we as a country have phenomenal ingredients experience from the dairy industry, and that we can fast track the marine journey by leveraging that experience in dairy, I think far surpasses anything that happens in Norway from a marine ingredients perspective. Yes, they have an advantage in terms of oil, no question, fish oil, as opposed to the North Sea. And I think they have an advantage in resources, and certainly a culture around that we simply don't have, and an infrastructure around seafood that we simply don't have. But the ingredients piece, we're actually further advanced than Norway, which is fantastic.
Amazing. Okay, so we have a couple of questions that's just come in. So from Tim, do you think there is a significant move to biomarine-based ingredients from a consumer perspective? And how do you compete from a marketing perspective with established ingredients like that are dairy-based? I'll put that to both of you. Maybe Stephen, you want to go first?
Yeah, there's definitely a huge shift towards marine bioingredients. Absolutely. How do you persuade people that this is the way to go? That's a very difficult question. You know, you are competing against very established ingredients. I suppose it's really around the sustainability of processing and of these ingredients. I suppose that's what we're all about. You know, I think what we're showing is that using, you know, marine based ingredients can be done in a really sustainable manner, which is really the key goal. Some of the other types of ingredients that are currently in the food chain, you know, are just, you know, not up to the modern standards of what people really want from a sustainability point of view. A lot of end of pipe type fixing, where people are trying to do things with their waste streams way down the line after the processes have been developed. And really, you know, what we try to do is design in from the very start, you know, how to manufacture in a way which is sustainable. And I think that's where, you know, the advantages are.
Jason, do you want to jump in on that one?
Yeah, it's a really good question. You know, when you're, like I say, trying to displace somebody, you're either going to go to an ingredient producer and you're going to say, we can reduce your ingredient costs because we will come in, do exactly the same job for your product, but we'll do it at a much cheaper price. Automatically, people, and particularly procurement guys, are going to be interested. When you move to the technical piece and it's a technical sale, we find that you need to provide a lot of technical data to support your product and even do comparisons. So we did extensive comparative work between our proteins and various proteins that are on the market. And it's from a techno-functional perspective, from emulsification, foaming, gelling, all of that type of technical work that is way beyond my brain. That's what we did, so that the technical guys can go out and make technical sales and convince procurement people, convince R&D people that there's an actual good justification, a motive, a good justification, or pricing. Because maybe at times we're looking at giving a premium price. So why should that person based in, for example, Japan, pay more money for a kilo of our powder versus a kilo of XYZ powder from anywhere else in the world? So if we're going to ask him for that, how can we justify it? So we have to do the application work, but we also then have to provide the techno-functional comparative work in the background. That's just what's worked for us.
Brilliant, great answers. Thanks for those. And I have a question here from Thomas Farrell. Maybe a question, or maybe it's a request for you, Jason. I see you're partnering with EWOS. Can you and the likes of Hexafly contribute towards a sustainable fish feed being produced in Ireland?
Hey, well, yeah, I think fish feed isn't a primary focus for us, to be honest. You know, if you consider that value chain or the value pyramid, it's probably closer down at the bottom. It's not a place that we want to occupy. I think in the early stages, when you're plowing the field, you want to take what's the opportunity that's in front of you, and some of those are commodity, and you need to start generating cash flow, and you want to move into that. But as you move up the value chain, our business model certainly revolves around the idea of not servicing those lower end segments and targeting higher up the value chain where we can get higher margins.
Yeah, that makes economic sense. And folks, feel free to add in more questions. We only have a few minutes left with both Jason and Stephen. From Tomas Hayes, from an equity and investment perspective, how difficult is it to secure investment and convince investors of the marine potential? That's a big question. So yeah, Stephen, you're smiling. Do you want to go first?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. All right. Yeah. I suppose it's how do you start? You know, all startups really, you know, struggle for investment, you know, and like along what we're saying, you kind of estimate, you think you can do these things in a certain amount of time, and you think it's going to cost you X amount of money, and you're wrong on a number of occasions. So I suppose you need an investor that has the patience and the vision, you know, to back what you're doing. I know there's various different like schemes now at the moment. There's lots of money. There's lots of people who want to invest in the future of these types of processes, but it's not an easy journey, and we're very lucky to have people who really believe in us and who are supporting us, you know. So you know, that's not always the case. It's very difficult. It can be a very difficult world to get started in. Yeah.
Is there an obvious list of investors to go to in the marine space?
Like there's I suppose there's a number of funds there at the moment, people who are, if you like, putting together ethical fundraisers. You know, I think that's a great place to start. I think there will be more of these types of funds. We can all see ourselves that, you know, you know, the banks are going to charge you for your money now. You know, people are prepared to take more risk for more reward. You know, so I think that landscape is changing. You know, I don't know if that's the best answer I can give you.
Yeah, sure. Jason, do you want to come in on that too?
Yeah, I think the macro picture with financing is positive. So is the macro picture for you know, consumable protein, but the reality is completely different. You know, people get lost in the fact that there is a wall of money out there, that there's a wall of demand for protein. The reality is it's much more difficult. I would think that, you know, we've been fortunate. We've raised a lot of money. We continue to raise a lot of money. We need to raise a lot of money. So I won't say permanently in financing mode, but most of my time, a lot of my time is in this type of forum with investors. It's hard. It's very hard work to raise money because, you know, in this type of environment, you're going to do it remotely. Our last funding round was exclusively online. We never had one face-to-face meeting, and we raised 5 million in the middle of the pandemic. So there's an evolution in terms of how financing is done, but it still comes down to the fundamentals. Have you got a solid business case that can provide a return? Of course, ESG, environmental sustainability, all of these things are very much core and central for most investment houses. But coming back to probably a point I made earlier on, I think you absolutely need a financial advisor. When I say a financial advisor, a professional equity firm, a professional firm in financial matters. It's easy to go to your local accountant and say, you know, would you help me raise €1,000, €5,000? If you want to get the serious money, you have to bring in the serious players. There's a cost associated with it, but it works.
And also on a previous webinar we hosted, it was with the European Circular Bioeconomy Fund, and they go for later stage funding for companies, you know, Series B and Series C onwards, so separate rounds. But very interesting the fact that LCA analysis is, you know, if you have products and services that are, they were looking to invest in, you have to do LCA analysis on that. And so that's, you know, from a carbon and sustainability perspective, it has to be embedded in the products and in the, I guess, the ethos of your company as well, before these clean tech and, I guess, circular and bioeconomy investors come on board. Yeah, great. So I think that's it for questions, unless there's anything else anyone wants to jump in with. I want to say thanks to both Jason and Stephen for joining us today. It's been a pleasure to hear about the company journeys and to learn more and hopefully inspire some of the, I know there's some entrepreneurs on this call who on this meeting today who are, you know, in startup mode. I know there's some businesses who are thinking about, you know, side streams and how to valorize those. So I hope that maybe you know, it inspires you. And if you're looking for advice, I'm sure Jason and Stephen would be happy to help, or, you know, be a contact as well if you need help with anything like that. Is that okay, Jason, Stephen? Do people contact you about it?
Yeah, that's fine with me. I put on my email address there, so feel free to contact.
Great, brilliant, super. So that segment is now ended. So now I'm going to ask Gordon Bond from Western Development Commission to jump in and share one of the programs you're working on, Gordon.
Yeah, thanks, Katrina. Just while I'm getting the slides set up, I'm going to say that I know we have 2 other speakers after this, so I'm going to try to talk fast, and I'm going to read from notes because otherwise I have a tendency to waffle, so it's not the most charismatic way of presenting, but hopefully you'll get the information you need and I won't eat into others' time. So can everyone see? Katrina, you might just let me know, can you see the slides okay there now?
Yeah.
Good, great. So just give me a second now. Blue Circular Economy then, just to start, people might have come across it before, but it's a 3-year project which is now in its final year. It's actually turned into 3.5 because of COVID. And the overall aim is to help SMEs, particularly net designers, fishers, aquaculturists, recyclers, or producers of goods which are using plastic as an input, to generate new economic opportunities from the recovery and upcycling of those types of marine plastic waste in the fishing and aquaculture industry. So it's a little bit tangential to the bioeconomy, but because plastic is so ubiquitous, it might be of information that's of use to companies involved in the space. The project is composed of 5 partners from across the Northern Periphery and Arctic region, which includes colleagues in Norway, Denmark/Greenland, Scotland, the UK, England rather, and ourselves here in the Western Development Commission. And in addition to research into marketing strategies, which is a big part of the work, and business models, the project is aiming to assist SMEs in establishing value chains which allow for a circular economy approach to this material. So in terms of its design, its use, its recovery, its recycling, and then its reuse, whether it's in new fishing gear or in other alternative products. There's a graphic here that just gives an example of one of the projects that's out there where they're turning this material into apparel. But there's all sorts of potential uses for the recycled material. To date, the project's main activity has been in organising events at which SMEs are brought together with other stakeholders like state agencies and fishing communities in particular, obviously, and so on, and to try and get them discussing the problem of marine plastics and the possible solutions to that problem. And these sessions have yielded quite a good amount of information about what's going on in Norway. As Jason mentioned, Norway tends to be ahead of us, ahead of everywhere really, when it comes to stuff like this. And there's quite a good ability there, a healthy ability to recover this material, get it recycled and get it into new products, but there's still a lot more work to be done. But they're quite far ahead of us in Norway. So in the Irish context, the situation is much more embryonic. So agencies like Bord Iascaigh Mhara have done a lot of work in trying to find solutions for end-of-life gear. but they still face problems in terms of getting it handled, you know, and processed in a way that's efficient and economically viable and so on. And there's also, to date, there has been no recycler that's providing solutions for the plastic waste that comes from the aquaculture industry. Now, some recyclers are starting to develop potential solutions for that, but plastic is such a difficult material to work with, and the way the nets or other gear is constructed is so complex that it can be difficult to find a way that works for one type of polymer, never mind all the types that can be involved. And all of this is particularly important. This is where some of the opportunity comes from. The pressure to find solutions comes from in light of the EU's extended producer responsibility initiative for fishing gear, which has to be up and running by 2024. So the scheme remains light on detail, but it seems clear that by 2024, in one way or another, net producers and producers of plastic aquaculture gear and plastic fishing gear will be responsible for the costs associated with its cleanup. So there's one potential gap there to try and reduce those costs or offset them in some way by finding a solution to the waste. But also, all the research says that the production of plastic, virgin plastic, is going to ramp up drastically between now and 2050. So the costs of dealing with that for any existing local authority or whoever is running a waste management system, there's potential cost there, which means that developing environment will create pressures, you know, on lots of different sides and greater impetus to find sustainable, innovative solutions to the problem of marine plastic, and particularly that proportion of it that comes from the fishing and aquaculture industries. So when it comes to, you know, the bioeconomy and the biomarine economy in particular, what's the relevance for companies? Well, plastic is so ubiquitous now that even if companies are not making plastic products, they probably are using some plastic in, whether it's their packaging or, you know, some element of, whether it's fish farming, fish cages, mussel ropes, something like that, you know, lobster pots, all those sorts of things, that you're probably going to have some amount of plastic waste or end of life plastic gear as a byproduct of your activities. So being able to find solutions to that, recycling solutions rather than having to go to landfill or whatever, could be, you know, a cost issue, but also could be very important in terms of your marketing and so on. When you market yourself as sustainable and environmentally focused companies, that you're going to need an ecosystem there which allows you to divert that stuff away from landfill and into a more environmentally friendly and circular way of managing it. So in addition to that, project partners are working on everything from value chain analysis to the development of an eco label, which can help companies to more effectively market themselves and more authentically identify their sustainability credentials in the marketplace. And one of the outputs of the project now is going to be a research anthology. So there's going to be like a standalone piece of work there, which hopefully will be almost like a handbook for trying to work with this waste for companies going forward. But a big element of the work is always just knowing what everyone's up to, and getting people talking to one another, getting companies aware of one another. So the contact details are all there and on the other slides. If anyone wants to loop in with us at any stage, you can just get me on the email, and we can see, you know, who we might know of that you might like to talk to when it comes to any plastic waste byproducts you have from your activities.
Brilliant. Thanks so much, Gordon. And we invited Gordon today because even though, you know, it's circular economy, it is about, you know, the resources that are available on sites like plastic and netting and things like that, and how they can be reused. So I think a handbook is going to be a brilliant resource for people, and do get involved with the project if you're interested in learning more. And, you know, particularly, I think it will help to save costs in the long term. It helps your sustainability strategy and marketing as well. So it seems like a bit of a win-win to get involved. I'm going to invite Niall O'Reilly from Hatch to share his screen, please.
Thanks, Katrina.
Yeah.
2 seconds. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. And Wayne Murphy sends his apologies as he wasn't able to do the presentation today. So I'm going to step in for Wayne. So my name is Niall O'Reilly, and I'm the Aquaculture Community Manager for Hatch in Ireland. So I know we're kind of tight in time, so I'm just going to give a quick summary of who Hatch are, what we are, and I want to talk a little bit about the innovation studios that we'll be running in October with BIM. So a little bit about Hatch. It's an Irish company founded in 2017. In 2018, we launched the world's first accelerator program focused specifically on aquaculture in Norway and Ireland. So quite unique. And then in 2019, we expanded to other locations in Hawaii and Singapore to deliver our third program. Last year, we closed our first investment fund at $8.4 million, and due to COVID, delivered the fourth program virtually. So to date, we've invested in 37 global aquaculture startups. So this kind of ties in with Jason and Stephen's presentations. So we are currently raising a fund next year with a target of $75 million. So the mission of Hatch is to catalyze farmed and alternative seafood innovation through investment, expertise, and insights by building a strong, committed innovation community. So what type of companies are we interested in investing in and startups? It's basically any novel startup with a good idea. So it could be nutrition, could be new production systems, health, genetic, and even services. So again, this really ties in with the questions that were coming through. There is resources out there for startups and new businesses who are looking for funding. So just a little bit about the innovation studios and what they are. So Hatch and BIM have been working on a 5-year innovation development program. So these studios, it's not just a meet and greet, here's some guest speakers and a good resource for networking, although it is all those things. It's a cutting edge workshop providing access to key market intel, business development skills, and global industry network and investment opportunities. So from the first 2 workshops, we have produced 23 high potential projects seeking to solve industry problems. So, sea lice management, new proteins in feed, etc. So out of those, so from the innovation studios we've already run, Hatch has already invested in 3 of those companies and provided company or funding for them. Hatch have made a big push towards the Irish market this year. They've recruited a new full-time Irish aquaculture community manager to find, support, and focus on Irish innovation and talent. So that's me, and that's why I'm here. So I'm excited to present this because I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs and startups in the audience. So what I would say is, if anything that I said there sounds like it might be of value to you, please reach out to me. I'll put my email in the chat. But we are running the innovation studios from the 11th to the 22nd of October, and just be mindful that the closing date for this is the 10th of September. So you can check out a bit more about us on our website, hatch.blue, but please reach out to me and we can connect and chat further. Thanks.
Thanks, Niall. Brilliant. That's so exciting that if you can just stop sharing your screen, that'd be brilliant. Really exciting about the potential for a €75 million fund. Wow, that's a huge amount of money. And the fact that you're already investing in Irish seafood companies, aquaculture companies, very exciting. So lots of potential. So what we'll do is we'll make sure that from all the speakers today, we'll make a recording of this webinar and we can share it with everybody so you have everyone's details as well. And so sadly, we had a technical problem and Amita Gunaratnam was not able to join us this afternoon to tell us about the FanVest program, but I'll follow up with information for people who might be interested. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to wrap up. Oh, I see we have a question in the chat. Oh, thanks, Niall, for putting your email in the chat there. So in terms of next steps, what you heard today was the stories of entrepreneurs. You also heard, the programs available as well if you're interested in seeking that support. But in terms of the cluster development and the marine bioeconomy focus area that we're working on, you're more than welcome to join us at an upcoming workshop. So do join the network. I will be sending out an email after this event today asking if you'd be interested in participating, and I'll share some dates and times for that as well. And basically the priority would be to prioritize and shape the marine bioeconomy cluster activities for the future. And this is really for business, built by business. So it's very important that we have private sector engagement around this and build programs that support industry as well. And then we can run them in partnership with people like Gordon, with people like Niall and BIM and various others. And if anybody has any questions from the webinar today, if they'd like to get in touch about anything, here's my contact details on the screen. You're more than welcome to get in touch. So thanks everyone for joining on your lunch hour. I hope it was an event that we found useful, and I look forward to welcoming you to the next innovation exchange in a few weeks' time. Thank you.
Thanks, Katrina. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Katrina. Very interesting. Well done.